The new Thor film may have received mixed reviews from critics and fans, but some of the new characters and the new items are pretty cool. So, what should you do if you want to bring those items and characters into D&D? Well, watch this video, and I'm going to bring in some of my favourites. Mind, spoiler alert, do not watch this video if you haven't seen the film yet and don't want anything spoiled for you. So, up first we have the new and improved Mjolnir. I had first made Mjolnir when I did the main Avengers back in a previous video. However, I did want to make a couple of changes based on what happens in the film, especially since it now has a new attack and a new ability. The new attack in question is the shrapnel spread, which is like a cone of cold if the cold was tiny bits of enchanted stone which will leave your stomach in tatters. I modelled this with a 60-foot cone centred on the wielder and said it dealt 46 piercing damage to any creature who failed a DC 20 dex save in that area. To balance it slightly though, I did add the condition that you had to use an action to reform it the next turn, but that's pretty standard. The other ability which I added was the healing ability that we see in the film. This nullifies any effect from a disease on the creature which is attuned to this item, and also increases said creature's constitution score to 18. This gives them a larger pool of HP while holding the item. The full stat block is here, and if you want to know any justification for anything I've done here, check out the full video on the Avengers items. Note, worthiness is something that is a little bit tricky to explain, so I'm planning on doing a video on that in the future. The next item is Mjolnir's replacement Stormbreaker. This is very similar to Mjolnir in that it has the same extra thunder damage, can be recalled the same, and allows the same ranged multi-attack. However, it does have some differences that make it interesting. Stormbreaker is a +3 weapon, so it has that going for it, plus it doesn't have that worthiness caveat that Mjolnir does. It also gives an extra spell worth 1 charge in Absorb Elements, plus it has double the charges to cast these spells. Overall, Stormbreaker is a bit stronger than Mjolnir in one-on-one attacks, but the shrapnel ability gives Mjolnir an AoE that Stormbreaker simply doesn't have. Item number 3 is one that was introduced in Love and Thunder, Zeus's Thunderbolt. This item is a literal lightning bolt that is Zeus's iconic weapon. It is shown in the film to be able to split into multiple pieces, with each part acting individually and returning to Zeus once they have finished their journey. As such, we will give the weapon the recall ability again and allow a ranged multi-attack of 4+ wisdom modifier creatures. Each of these attacks will deal 1d8 plus 2d6 lightning damage, and you can use Dex as the attack stat for these ranged attacks. It can also be used as a melee attack, but can only hit one creature at a time if you do this. We also see that this grants the ability of flight, so being attuned to Thunderbolt will give a creature a flying speed of 40 foot. Being attuned also allows you to cast Misty Step and Thunder Step at will. The final ability that this item will grant you is the ability to create a thunderclap when you catch it, dealing 2d6 thunder damage to anyone within 5 foot of you when it returns to your hand. We're now moving from items to stat blocks, and we have 4 that we will be going through today. That is Korg, Valkyrie, the Shadow Monsters, and Gol the God Butcher himself. Let's start with Korg. His stats are as follows. He has pretty good strength and con, as well as good charisma, as he is a pretty good storyteller. His other stats are relatively low, none are really super dump stats. His lowest is intelligence at 12, but that's not really where he shines in the film, so that makes sense. He gets a proficiency bonus of +4, and he uses those proficiencies in athletics, intimidation, persuasion, and performance. He has an AC of 22, as he is literally made of stone, and he has 152 HP at his max. His abilities are pretty martial, as he is a good fighter and a good shooter. I gave him Crossbow Expert and a heavy crossbow that he can use with strength to get a +11 to hit. He also has a battle axe which is also +11 to hit. He gets 2 attacks on his turn, and he can use either of these twice or one of each, mix and match, it's up to him. He also has an extra ability which was shown off in Love and Thunder. This is that he can grow back body parts if part of him is destroyed. In fact, the only part that needs to remain intact is his mouth. Overall, Korg is a good NPC to have your party team up with if they need some backup, or just a cool storyteller to hype them up as they go into battle. Up next is Valkyrie. She has a strong set of stats thanks to her Asgardian nature, putting strength, dexterity and constitution all above 20. She also has a +4 proficiency, but gets to double that bonus for dex saves and has proficiency in acrobatics, athletics, perception and stealth. She also has 231 HP at max, and has her Valkyrie armour, which gives her an AC of 20, and similar to Adamantine, means she cannot be crit upon. Her abilities are mostly martial based, with a spear, a sword, and daggers, all of which she has expertise in wielding. Therefore, all of these are plus 14 to hit, but they do each do slightly different things. Firstly, the spear does 1d8 piercing damage, but the damage can be combined with the shove action, pushing an enemy back or prone. Her sword, Dragonfang, does a larger amount of damage at 2d8. And the daggers allow 2 attacks, either ranged or melee, but each attack only deals 1d6. She was also one of the leaders of the Valkyries, and as such gets manoeuvres similar to the Battlemaster. Honestly, you could choose any manoeuvres to be added to her stat block for your game, but I chose the following for mine: Maneuvering Strike, Quick Toss, and Trip Attack. For these manoeuvres, she has 5d10 as her superiority dice. Overall, she is a great boss for mid to high level players, especially if you use her manoeuvres with a good selection of minions. Now we can move from the good guys to the bad guys. Let's start with the minions in Love and Thunder, namely the Shadow Monsters. These guys and gals have decent stats, but a much lower health of 45 and a medium-ish AC of 18. They also have proficiency in Intimidation and Arcana with expertise in Stealth. It is when their abilities come in though that they become very, very interesting. Firstly, they have an ability called Shadow Walk, which allows them to use a bonus action to teleport to a spot within 60 foot of them that is in darkness, be that normal or magical. They also have blind sense up to 30 foot, which means they can see in both magical and normal darkness. Their final non-attack ability is Shadow Nature, which means that they passively hide in darkness, meaning a creature needs to pass a DC 19 investigation or perception check to see them in darkness. Their 2 attacks both deal necrotic damage. Their melee is a Shadow Blade, which deals 2d6 necrotic damage and is plus 9 to hit, whereas the ranged attack Shadow Burst deals 1d8 and has that regular plus 9 to hit. The range on that ranged attack is 30 foot, the extent of their blind sense. Overall, these are not the hardest hitters, but their shadow qualities can make them quite frustrating foes to fight, and so they can be quite fun to throw at your party. And finally, we have their boss, Gaul the God Butcher. This poor man was possessed by the Necrosword, and therefore has heightened strength and dex as a result. His mental stacks do remain lower, and his con stays at 16. His speed is 30 as standard, and he has 432 hit points. He has a plus 5 proficiency bonus, and he is proficient in History, Arcana, Intimidation, Religion, and Nature. The sword grants him an AC of 20 and the following abilities. Firstly, he is able to use an action to create 1d6 shadow monsters. This ability recharges on a 6, similar to a dragon's breath weapon. When he has created these shadow creatures, he is able to control them, and they will follow his orders completely. His second ability is the ability to shadow walk, like his creations. He is able to use a bonus action to teleport to any spot within 60 foot that is in complete darkness, be that magical or otherwise. His third ability is an innate ability to cast darkness with a radius of 10 foot centered on himself. He can cast 3 times per long rest. His final ability comes in with his attacks. He can make 3 attacks per turn with the Necrosword, each at a plus 12 to hit, and each deals 3d8 necrotic damage as standard. However, if the target he is hitting is a Celestial, that increases to 5d8 necrotic damage on a hit. If an attack with the Necrosword would drop a Celestial to 0 HP, then that Celestial is killed outright, even if they are not on their home plane. Overall, these attacks make him quite a scary foe, especially if you have a party with a couple of Celestials homebrewed in. Maybe the only thing that actually scares a god. So, there we have it, a selection of items and creatures from Thor, Love and Thunder. Let me know what you think, and let me know if you have any other